Thank you so much, Georgia, and really great to be back with you. My name is Eleni Giokos. I'm a correspondent and anchor for CNN, and I'm honored and delighted to launch into our next conversation. I'd like to welcome the new Managing Director of the International Finance Corporation, Makhtar Diop. He's also a former Finance Minister in Senegal, and we're going to be exchanging our views on how to restore economic growth through the pandemic, what a post-COVID world would look like for the African continent. And we'll also discuss access to vaccines. It's been one of the most important topics plaguing our conversations and, of course, the economic recovery in Africa over the past while. We also know that we've got a huge unemployment issue on the continent, particularly with the youth, but also this is a fantastic opportunity to look at how we can grow the next set and the next generation of entrepreneurs. So, Mr. Diop, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for taking the time. We are sitting in a moment in history where we can try and turn our challenges into opportunities. But the reality is we've seen a grave economic toll of the COVID-19 pandemic and how that's impacted African economies. You're close to the private sector. You're working with countries to help them move out of this pandemic and to help economic recovery. What are the lessons that we've learned over the past year?
I mean, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to chat with you guys about the situation, because we've been working like all of us to address the challenges. The lessons that we learned from this pandemic is first you need to react fast. When there is a huge, massive shock like the ones that we have recorded recently, you need to react quickly. One of the things that we've seen on the continent is that banks were financing much less trade finance, and we needed to do much more on trade financing. So we increased significantly the volume of trade financing, and this year we did 18 billion of trade financing during the period of the COVID-19 crisis. I mean, not only in Africa, but in the continent, in the world at large. But a big focus of it was in Africa. We are increasing that volume with another $1 billion, and it was announced during the summit that was held in Paris earlier this year on the financing of African economies. We also did you need to innovate when you have this situation, because you are faced with new challenges and maybe the old tools are not working. So we have innovated, and we did a few things that was not there. We are developing an initiative of distress asset recovery, which when there is a crisis like that, a lot of companies have assets which are viable on the long term, but because of this shock, have to be supported. So we have developed this program, which was very successful. And lastly, we help countries to look at their bankruptcy policy and regulation. A lot of countries had outdated policies in terms of bankruptcy, and it was not helping them to really rebound and to be able to help the private sector. That being said, we have seen a lot of resilience in African economies, and that resilience is because measures have been taken in the past to make those economies much more resilient. We have seen a country having counter-cyclical policies that were put in place and to help the private sector in responding. On the health side, the investment that we did in the past with the CDC was very fruitful. The World Bank at that time invested $200 million to put CDC Africa, which was a key player in responding to the crisis on the health side. So a lot of things has been happening, and some lesson has been learned from it.
Absolutely. I mean, and knowing what tools to use to try and move out of this crisis is one thing that Africa is really good at, and that's resilience, its endurance, and of course, ensuring that scarce resources are put to work in a maximum way. You know, these lessons have been groundbreaking, and of course, they've shaken us to our core. When I look at just how incredibly adaptable entrepreneurs have been and how the private sector in so many ways has come to the party, how has that made it, you know, how has that changed your strategy as the IFC?
We adapted our strategy. First of all, we have increased the volume of lending and intervention in sectors where we are not as strong in the past, such as health sector. We increased tenfold our portfolio in the health sector. And we've been currently leading a consortium of lenders to support the vaccine in Africa. You've seen what is happening in Rwanda, in Senegal, in South Africa. But beyond those three countries, in other countries in Africa, Cote d'Ivoire is trying to move that direction. Nigeria is doing something. Ghana is doing something. So what we are doing is that we are beefing up, increasing our intervention in the health sector. We have launched an initiative which is African manufacturing equipment, which helps the private sector to get better quality equipment to be able to respond. A second thing that we have done more of is a greater focus on digital. These crises have shown us that there were a big digital divide, and that needs to be filled if we want to have African economies being able to respond to this crisis. But it's an opportunity to do things differently. You have seen that a lot of services that were not there before has been developing, being food services, home delivery, market, what is happening in the traditional market. We have now a big opportunity coming in Africa. We have two large submarine cables that will be coming alive in a couple of years, and will be increasing by close to 30 times the current volume of data available in the continent. So if you have the right policies, and if we have the right competition policies and access policies in country, in fact, we can leapfrog and reach the goal of universal access for digital and internet in Africa by 2030, and help all these startups and SMEs to really be an integral part of the world economy.
Let's talk about access to vaccines. It has been very difficult for so many African countries. We know that most countries were not prepared for a health crisis. And just like you alluded to, we haven't been paying enough attention and investment in this sector. Why do you think we're sitting in a position where we're still talking about vaccine access? And then I refer to the stat that we know. Look, 99% of vaccines that are used for Africa are imported. It's clear we need to increase manufacturing capacity. It's clear we need to be plunging ourselves into this value chain. How can the private sector work together to prepare for future pandemics?
It's happening. Actually, we are working very hard. You've heard from what I said earlier. We have some large companies that I don't want to name, who have decided to install a more advanced technology in Africa, mRNA vaccine. It was announced last month in Berlin during the Compact Africa Summit, and not later than today, another company announced that they will put $500 million in vaccine, mRNA vaccine in Africa. So things are happening. The private sector is realizing that this is the next frontier. This is where we need to invest. And on the research front, things are moving very fast. 2 days ago, Tedros, the Director General of WHO, announced that a vaccine on malaria is now available. So things are moving very fast on various fronts. And for me, this crisis of coronavirus should give us an opportunity to eradicate all these diseases that are still existing in Africa, being malaria, being other diseases that are affecting our population, but also to create an ecosystem for a stronger pharmaceutical industry, which allow us to address issues which are coming now more and more, becoming more and more main issues for public health, which are diabetes, hypertension, all these diseases that are affecting now population in Africa.
You know, I've been asking myself this question, why it's taken so long for us to truly invest in the production of certain medicines and vaccines, because we have the capabilities if we just invest in them. And I appreciate you saying that there are a few companies that are pumping a lot of money into it. But when it comes to the COVID vaccine in particular, we've just been able to capture the back end of that value chain. So it's just, you know, packaging and distribution. And most of the experts that I've spoken to really get into the vaccine game, it's going to take a very long time, which is different to what you're saying. You're saying that this is going to be, you know, we're moving very fast. Are you optimistic that we can get this done very quickly so we are prepared and better prepared for the eventuality of a possibility of another pandemic?
Vaccine is not, producing vaccine is not like producing socks or producing soda. It's a much more complex process. So you have you have to be extremely careful in terms of regulation, of rule, of capability, of capacity to avoid a catastrophe. If a virus is not well controlled and get into nature, this is a catastrophe for a country and for the world. So there is a need for caution and ensure that all conditions are in place. That being said, some country like Institut Pasteur in Dakar has been working on a yellow fever vaccine in the past and have been producing them and have been recognized internationally. What I'm saying is that you start, you have to have a maturity model where you look at where you are, the state of development you are on the health, on the science side in your country to be able to adapt the industrial activity accordingly. Right now, our countries are most of them are ready for cap and fill. That's what we want to secure. For API, which are ingredient for the production of vaccine, some countries are starting doing that. South Africa is a bit advanced. Senegal is a bit advanced. Rwanda is catching up on this, and those will be the elements which allow us more and more to do everything we can on the value chain. That being said, you will need a level of specialization of countries. And that's what I think that the African trade agreement, if it's implemented in the health sector, will be able to allow countries to specialize in part of the value chain and to be able to have a competitive pharmaceutical sector in Africa, a competitive vaccine production industry in Africa.
I'm smiling because, you know, I love the fact that you are saying that it's possible, that you're seeing changes, and it is exciting to me that we're seeing so much investment and a lot of attention being placed in this sector. What role would you say the small to medium-sized enterprises are going to be playing as a whole in Africa? We know that they've been such a vital part of the economic growth potential on the continent, but at the same time, we know that they have a tough job of survival, and SME failure in Africa is also very high. How do you see that playing out?
This is my number one challenge. Since I took the responsibility of leading, I've been focusing very much on SMEs, because for me, this is where a job will be created in the context of African economy. If you don't have a strong network of SMEs, when integrated in the international value chain, you'll not be able to create the sustainable jobs that you want to create. You'll not be able to absorb this young population which is coming on the labor market every year. So to do that, you need to address some bottlenecks that they're facing. One of them is financing, but not only financing, short-term financing, but long-term financing, which is one of the big constraints they're facing. Right now, the banking sector and the financial sector in African countries, because of the low level of domestic savings, cannot all the time extend at the levels that they wish a long-term financing for those companies to be able to invest in equipment to improve their productivity and do all the things that are necessary for them to grow and grow fast. So we are working very, very closely with them. We have added another $1 billion specifically for SMEs in Africa. We are working with the banks to channel those resources to the small and medium enterprises, and we are having a special focus on women, because we believe that if you work very close, well, in the SME space, if you target the women entrepreneur, you can make a big difference in a country and in an economy.
Look, I know that you probably are really taking into consideration how we can propel the informal sector, which is the lifeblood of the economy, of putting food on the table in so many African countries and so many cities. How do we propel them from informal to becoming an SME, to becoming a fully fledged business, to becoming the next billion-dollar business? You know, are we thinking about how we can grow these companies to become resilient and become mega players? Not everyone's going to be able to do it, but you know, the aspirations to be able to achieve that would be phenomenal.
I was last week in a conversation with the CEO of PayPal and the CEO of MasterCard, And what is clear is that digital will help us to do a lot of this. I don't think that it's a panacea, that it will solve all the issues, but you could contribute a lot in addressing some of these issues. Access to finance, which is a big problem for SMEs, in Africa, is facilitated by the use of fintech, and the fintech industry is growing quite fast. And I encourage particularly African investors to put money in these sectors, because I think that is the future, that well, a lot of things will be happening. Secondly, investing in logistics. It's clear that if you want to connect the small producers and to the larger market and the bigger market, you need to have a logistics system which is efficient and which function well. And I think that is something that also the private sector can play a role. How to organize the informal sector transportation to be part of the overall logistics effort is something important, and it's happening actually. When I now go on vacation in my country, I need to have some food after landing from Washington. In the past, I will go and try to find a place where I can eat in Dakar. Now I can take my phone, I can order some food, and someone is delivering it at home. So among those in that value chain, there is someone who is maybe from the informal sector cooking. There is someone who has a motorcycle, who is from the informal sector, who is working and who is delivering it to me, and I'm using a digital payment to do that. And these people, as they go, they will start organizing themselves more formally. They would like to have a better quality motorbike. They want to have a better, faster and safer kitchens, and they will ask for financing from the bank, and that will progressively bring them in the formal sector. This is a progressive process that we cannot accelerate in a bureaucratic and autocratic way, but it's a natural process with the right incentives that will be making it happen.
Absolutely. I think everyone wants to know what food you miss most in DC and what you order when you arrive.
You know, the world has changed. It's quite exciting, because in the past you cannot have all the ingredients for our own food, our Senegalese chebujen or yassa or mafe, but now you can get them, and that's a part of this integrated world. And I give you just an anecdote to close it, is that I love Kenyan tea, and in the past I used to ask my friend from Kenya, bring me some of your tea. Now I can order it on Amazon. I can order and I've delivered in my house Kenyan tea. Think what it makes as a difference for the tea pickers in Kenya. And that's the way the world will be evolving.
You know, we're so proud to see you as the MD of the IFC and how you can help champion the Africa agenda in so many ways. Could you tell us whether you're hopeful about the future and how you're seeing discussions evolve around developmental issues in Africa and how the private sector is viewing the continent in terms of investments in FDI?
We have seen after a time where people FDI have an increase in the continent, particularly in commodity-related activities. We have seen a small decrease, but I hope that next year we see an increase, and that's why institutions like IFC are important. And I say yesterday when we launched our report, when people were retracting and being slowing down, we went forward and we supported it. And that's the role of institutions like IFC. And I'm very confident that in the future, things will be picking up. But what do we need to do that? We need to reduce bureaucracy not for foreign direct investors, but for local investors. There's the one first penalized by that, by take advantage of the digital economy, what it brings, by empowering our youth, by not talking at them, but listening to them and see what we can do to make their business. And lastly, ensure that women, which are half of the world, are playing the role that they can play in the productive sector. And it's always for me amazing whenever I'm sitting in a panel to see so much energy coming from that people from the diaspora, from the continent, how there is. So we are in a time where things are moving, are changing. And what I'm telling you today, I hope that in 6 months will be totally obsolete. and I will be telling you something totally different, because the world is moving fast, and we need to embrace all these changes in a very fast and dynamic way.
Absolutely. Look, I'm hoping that the world can taste our Kenyan tea, our Rwandan coffee, all the amazing products that Africa has to offer. And I hope that we can trade more amongst each other. And I'm hopeful, Makhtar, that will happen, especially with you at the helm at the IFC. So I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you soon, and I hope that we'll be able to talk about it and maybe drink some Kenyan tea or Rwandan coffee, and eat some Senegalese chebujan, or as I say to my Nigerian friend, jollof rice belongs also to Senegal. Jollof means
I don't want to get into
rice.
I'm scared you were going to go there. I'm scared. I mean, I love all jollof rice wherever it comes from. That's it. That's my stance.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Pleasure talking to you.
So good to speak to you, Georgia. It's back to you. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.